They burned her alive for heresy. Nearly 5 centuries later, the same church declared her a saint. Joan of Arc was never supposed to become one of Christianity's greatest symbols. She was supposed to disappear in the flames. Instead, her execution changed Christianity forever. The year was 1431. In the city of Rouen, before soldiers, priests, judges, and a terrified crowd, a 19-year-old girl was tied to a wooden pillar in the marketplace. She wore no crown, no armor, no sign of victory, only fear, faith, and a cross placed before her eyes as the fire began to rise. The men who condemned Joan believed they were protecting Christianity. Instead, they created one of its most enduring martyrs. 15th century France was a kingdom collapsing under the weight of war. For nearly 100 years, conflict between England and France devastated the medieval world. Villages burned. Fields were destroyed. Famine returned again and again, and everywhere, people searched for signs that God had not abandoned them completely. To medieval Christians, war was never only political. Victory suggested divine favor. Defeat suggested judgment, and France seemed cursed. The French king, Charles VI, suffered periods of madness so severe he sometimes failed to recognize his own family. Nobles fought each other for power. Entire regions fell under English control. Many believed the kingdom itself was dying, not only politically, but spiritually. Far from courts and cathedrals, in the small village of Domrémy, lived a peasant girl named Jean. She could not read. She had no military education, no noble ancestry. Nothing about her suggested destiny. And then came the voices. Years later, Joan would testify that heavenly figures began speaking to her when she was around 13 years old. San Michaelan, San Catherine, San Margaret. They did not ask her to enter a convent. They did not ask her to pray in silence. They commanded her to save France. To modern ears, this sounds impossible. But medieval Europe was a world deeply shaped by visions, relics, prophecy, and divine signs. The supernatural was not distant. It was woven into everyday life. And Joan spoke with the certainty that unsettled people around her. Not the certainty of ambition, but the certainty of someone who believed she belonged entirely to God. Against all logic, Joan gained access to Charles, the uncrowned heir to the French throne. According to later accounts, she recognized him immediately, even after he disguised himself among members of his court. Whether legend or truth, the story spread rapidly, because desperate people wanted desperately to believe. Church authorities examined Joan carefully. Was she holy? Delusional? Possessed? No one knew, and yet she was allowed to proceed. Dressed in white armor and carrying a banner bearing the names of Jesus and angels, Joan rode with French forces toward the besieged city of Orleans. What followed shocked Europe. The French began winning. Again. And again. Soldiers who had expected defeat suddenly believed heaven itself fought beside them. Joan became more than a military figure. She became a sign. To many Christians, she represented proof that God had not abandoned France after all. In 1429, Charles was crowned King Charles VII in the Cathedral of Reims. For Joan, this moment fulfilled the mission heaven had given her. A peasant girl had walked beside kings and altered the fate of a nation. But triumph created fear. Because Joan's existence challenged the structure of medieval authority itself, she claimed direct guidance from God. She inspired ordinary people. She spoke with certainty to nobles, bishops, and commanders. And perhaps most dangerous of all, she was believed. In medieval Christianity, women could become mystics, visionaries, holy women. But Joan crossed boundaries few women were allowed to cross. She entered war, politics, national destiny. If her visions were genuine, then God had chosen a peasant girl over powerful men who claimed to speak in his name. That possibility terrified people. In 1430, Joan was captured near Compiègne by Burgundian forces allied with England. Her victories had made her too important to kill quietly. The English understood something crucial. If Joan died as a military prisoner, she might become a martyr. But if she could be condemned as a heretic, everything she represented would collapse. Her victories would appear demonic, her visions false, her faith corrupted. So Joan was delivered to an ecclesiastical court, not for war, but for religion. The trial began in Rouen, under the supervision of clergy loyal to English interests. For months, Joan endured interrogation after interrogation. The judges questioned her visions, her clothing, her obedience to the church, and her claims about God. Again and again, they tried to trap her in theological contradiction. Yet Joan answered with remarkable intelligence. Especially for someone without formal education, one question became legendary. The judges asked whether she knew she was in God's grace. In medieval theology, the question was dangerous. To answer yes could suggest sinful pride. To answer no could imply guilt. Joan replied, "If I am not, may God place me there. If I am, may God keep me there." Even her enemies were stunned. But the verdict had already been decided long before the trial began. Joan's greatest crime was not defeating armies. It was claiming certainty in a world where religious authority demanded obedience. On May 30th, 1431, Joan was led into the marketplace at Rouen. Witnesses later described her crying openly as the sentence was read. "Not with rage, not with hatred, but with fear, human fear." She asked for a cross. One English soldier reportedly made a small wooden cross and handed it to her. Another cross was brought from a nearby church. Joan held it before her face as the executioners prepared the fire. Then the flames rose. Smoke swallowed the scaffold. The crowd watched in silence, and through the fire, witnesses heard her call repeatedly upon the name of Jesus. Then her voice disappeared. The flames were meant to silence Joan forever. Instead, they made her impossible to forget. Something unexpected happened after the execution. Even men loyal to the English began expressing horror. Some feared an innocent woman had been killed. Others believed divine judgment would follow. The executioner himself reportedly confessed he feared for his soul. The authorities had hoped to destroy Joan's influence. Instead, they transformed her into a martyr. And martyrdom holds immense power within Christianity. From the earliest centuries of the church, martyrs were not remembered as victims alone. They were witnesses, proof that faith could survive violence, that truth could survive empire, that the soul could remain unconquered, even in flames. Joan entered that tradition immediately. 25 years later, the church reopened Joan's case. Politics had changed. France had regained strength, and growing numbers believed her trial had been deeply corrupt. Witnesses returned to testify. Evidence was reviewed again. In 1456, the church declared the original condemnation invalid. Joan of Arc was officially cleared of heresy. The woman burned in the marketplace was no longer condemned. She was vindicated, but history was not finished with her. Over the centuries, Joan became many things: a heroine, a patriot, a defender of conscience, a religious icon, and eventually, a saint. In 1920, the Catholic Church canonized Joan of Arc, nearly 500 years after her execution. The same institution that once condemned her now declared her holy. Joan of Arc changed Christianity because her story exposed a terrifying possibility: that religious institutions could condemn someone genuinely faithful. Her death forced Christians to confront difficult questions. Can political fear disguise itself as theology? Can authority become corrupted by power? Can holiness appear where society least expects it? Joan challenged medieval assumptions about gender, authority, and divine truth. She was a peasant girl who spoke like a prophet and fought like a commander. She blurred the line between mystic and warrior, between obedience and conscience. And long after her death, Christianity could never entirely forget her, because Joan represented something both dangerous and hopeful. The possibility that God might choose the overlooked, the powerless, the condemned. The fire at Rouen did not destroy Joan of Arc. It transformed her into something larger than the men who judged her. In the end, Joan of Arc was only 19 years old, a farmer's daughter, a visionary, a soldier, a prisoner, a martyr. The men who sentenced her believed they were defending Christianity. Instead, They created one of its eternal symbols, a young girl standing in flames, holding a cross before her eyes, calling the name of Jesus as smoke filled the sky above Rouen. Centuries later, the world still remembers her, not because she conquered kingdoms, but because she refused to abandon what she believed heaven had asked of her. If this story changed the way you see Joan of Arc, there are many more forgotten moments in medieval history waiting to be uncovered. Subscribe to Medieval Chronicles, where history is not only remembered, but felt.